I'm Karissa Olive.
I'm Alexis Poles.
I'm Lacey Wendl. I'm Julia Kopp.
All right, thank you for coming. We are truly honored to be here. Davenport North was the recipient of the Iowa Watershed Project grant, and Davenport North is on a traditional 4x4 block, meaning we have 4 classes that meet 82 minutes every day. And I decided that this project would be best fit with my environmental science class that we're teaching. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I launched it to the students. I have 2 different groups of students here, and they're going to talk about their projects that they did. And then I'll show you the results from them, and we'll open for questions. So the first thing is they need to know what a watershed is. And oftentimes we take for granted, we assume that the students know what a watershed is by the time they're in high school, but unfortunately that's just not true. And so I spend a little bit of time talking about what the watershed is, and I have a short video. And then the Mississippi watershed, there's a great digital map from National Geographic that shows how it's all draining and really portrays what the watershed is. And that's what those 2 links are. So then we talk about why the Mississippi watershed is important to them. Sometimes we live on the north end of Davenport, and we're right on the Mississippi River. And some students have never actually made it downtown and gone to the Mississippi River. And so we talk about why it's important and brainstorm a bunch of different ideas. These are just a few, obviously not all of them, but we brainstormed this list of ideas. First term, I actually took some students down, and we started the class, the first day of class, on a field trip, walking along the Mississippi River to see different pieces of it in action. And then the essential question that I asked the students was, what can we, as students of Davenport North High School and Davenport, do to improve the Mississippi River watershed? And as I said, I have 2 different groups here. The first term, the students were required to come up with a project proposal and then pitch it to a panel of public works employees and community members for funding and to actually carry out their project. The second group of students, their pitch was a little bit different. We took one of the projects from first term and made it come to life. And then we're 4th term, so I'm doing this again starting on Monday. We're going to make another project come to life. And so they have a brainstorming session where they could come up with different aspects of the watershed and what they might want to focus on. We spent about 2 to 3 days brainstorming and narrowing it down, getting into our groups, because these groups we spent the next 8 weeks together working on. And we came up with 9 different projects that we pitched first term. I'm going to go ahead and let 2 of my students talk about theirs first, and then I'll tell you about the rest of them and the feedback. So Karissa, if you would talk about your projects.
So I was partnered with one of my friends, and we decided that we wanted to educate people rather than doing something else, because it's important that people know what they're trying to make a change for. So we decided, instead of, when we were walking along the Mississippi that first day, we didn't see very many signs or like any information about how to improve it, or even that it needs improvement or that it's bad or in a bad state or anything like that. So we decided that we were gonna create signs to post along parks, schools, and different waterways to inform families and people walking along there or using the places that things that they should do and shouldn't do. And I have a little model of what our sign would be. It'd be much bigger, but it's in the shape of Iowa, because that's where our signs would be. And it's hard to see from where you guys are sitting, but it would have all the watersheds, like the streams and lakes and all that stuff, painted on here. And there would be things hanging off of it that would have don'ts, like don't leave animals, feces on the ground and stuff, because it will go into the water. And do's, like pick up trash, obviously, and like don't use commercial car washes and things like that. And it also just had basic information like what a watershed is and the current grade of the watershed. So overall, they would leave the sign knowing a lot more than what they did when they came.
Okay. Go ahead, Alexa.
Okay. My project, it was restoring the watershed, the rain gardens in front of the North High School. And my group decided to do this project because one day in class we went outside in front of our high school and saw these rain gardens, and rain gardens help reduce the amount of sediment going into the Mississippi River, and we thought that we could restore the rain gardens because our rain gardens had many invasive species in it, and it was completely destroyed. It has not been maintained since like 2003, which is when the rain gardens were put there. And so we decided to restore them by cutting down all the dead plants and trees, and we're going to put native species of plants into the rain garden and put rocks around the edge of the rain garden to help reduce the amount of toxic and sediment going into the Mississippi River. And we actually got the city to cut down the dead trees and stuff. So, and we got a grant from the city, so we're planning to use this as the 4th term class project. And yeah.
So both of theirs we're going to implement 4th term. We were able to get the woody debris cut out of the rain gardens, and starting next week we're going to come up with a plan to rehab our rain gardens out front, and we're going to try to make Karissa's sign come to life at our rain gardens so that everyone coming by can see it. Some of the other projects that we had in the top corner is the litter prevention station. They noticed that a lot of parks don't have any garbage cans, and so they wanted to put some signage there, which they got signs donated. They're currently working with schools to try to get their litter prevention station signs installed. We also have a group that's trying to install rain gardens at Nahant Marsh. Their goal is to get $3,000. They're about halfway there, and they're applying for some grants and working closely with Nahant Marsh just to improve that facility. Another group had the idea of a Watershed Expo, and that's what we made come to life 2nd term, that we'll be talking about in a moment. And we had this beautiful map of City of Davenport posted, and the idea was we would put stickers anytime we talked to people, and I forgot to collect addresses at our expo, so it was going to look a lot better after our expo, but I forgot to get that information. But it's a good way to show how we're actually reaching out to people. We also gave them a survey at the end just for some feedback. 23% of the students said that they knew what a watershed was before the class. 100 of them said they knew afterwards. Most of them said they would apply the lessons learned to their personal life. And that translated to about 4 students that are now interested in a career dealing with water and soil, which is super great. Some more, most of them agreed that they learned some life skills about executing a project. And they felt like they educated a large number of people, and now they have a more realistic viewpoint of everything that goes into making changes, and that it's not just something that will happen overnight. And so then this next class, unfortunately my video link doesn't work. We made a green screen video to pitch to the class, telling them what the watershed is, and we're going to put on this awesome expo, and we need your help. And so we came up with the Getting Ahead of the Watershed Expo. It was on March 10th. We had 22 community partners, or 22 interactive booths with community partners. We saw over 200 people come through. It's less than what we were hoping for, but as the first time, I think it was a pretty successful event, and everybody had asked if we were going to do it again next year because they would bring more people to it. But so I started the class again with that video and the question, what can we do? And they picked an area of the watershed to focus on and create booths. This is the layout of our venue. We had it at the River Center. It was quite a large space. We also engaged the art students. We had art displays from 2 different elementary schools and our high school as well in the center. We had 7 different community partners, and all in all, again, I think it was a pretty successful event. But to tell you a little bit more, okay, just kidding, there's the art show. The one on the right, Harrison Elementary School, it was a collaborative effort across grade levels. They all did a piece and put it together, and all the little kids that worked on it that came to the expo, you should have seen their faces beaming, and they were telling everyone all about their part of the watershed, which was pretty phenomenal as well. The top left was the voter choice for the high school art, which is an eagle made out of plastic spoons. And the bottom left is the elementary school art Voters' Choice Award for the local lock and dam. And those are some of our community partners. Robbin Dunn from Public Works has been a huge instrument in making this process happen. I honestly could not have done any of this without her help. These projects are beyond the breadth of my knowledge of how to make things happen in the city, and so that's been wonderful. She's in the bottom center booth. We also had the Visitor Center from the Lock and Dam had a booth. The Iowa Water Center had a booth, Curb Appeal, and they were all, again, paired with a booth that a student made. And so we have several different student exhibits. I'm going to have Lacey talk about hers first.
So the project that my group had picked to do for this expo was permeable pavement, and we picked this because we were looking into things that were affecting the grade of our watershed, and we found that surface runoff was actually played a really big part in it. We found that if an area has more than 10 to 20% impermeable surfaces, then the water near that area will be harmed. And it's unfortunate because most populated areas have about 50 to 94% impermeable surfaces. And so we wanted to educate the public about permeable pavement and give them that option. And permeable pavement has a lot of different benefits besides reducing runoff and filtering pollutants from water. It's really great in the winter. It reduces the need for salts because permeable pavement has natural de-icing properties. So that's another way we're keeping those pollutants out of the river. And overall, I think it went really well. We had a lot of people come up to us. Our community partner was Curb Appeal. I think Kyle was his name. He got some business from it. A lot of people were interested in it, and it was really cool to see what people thought when they were given that option. So.
And also their display is the far right one. They had a student from the graphics design class help develop their logo, and they handed out stickers. And their interactive piece was they had two different containers, one representing normal cement, and they had kids take a sponge and squeeze water on it, and it would just pool on top. And then they had another one that represented the permeable paver, so you could actually see it go through. Then, our next one, Julia, if you want to talk about yours.
So my topic was lock and dams and why they needed to be maintenance. And luckily, we have Lock and Dam 15 down in the Mississippi River near our community. So it was really cool to see how it affected our community as a whole, because not a lot of people think that lock and dams need to be repaired over time and kept up with. They seem like they're a really stable thing to keep, and just once you do it, you're done. But there is a lot that goes into lock and dams, and infrastructure maintenance is one of the largest factors that goes into the grade of our Mississippi watershed, which is not the greatest. So it seemed like it was a really good way to boost our grade without taking on more than I can chew. So we did lock and dams, and personally I didn't know a lot about lock and dams before I came into this, so I needed a lot of help. So I contacted the Mississippi Visitor Center, and Mike McKean was amazing. He's in the top left, and he gave us so much information about what needed to happen and how we could fix these lock and dams, which realistically was funding. There is a large gap in what we need to do with funding for lock and dams, mainly because it doesn't get out. So other than people in our community, and unless you have a lock in your community, you don't really think about them. So it's hard to get other people to push it forward in order to get the funding across. So it was really cool to have him down at the expo to give a more in-depth speech about what lock and dams are and how they fit into our community. And it was just an overall really good experience to work with people from our community that knew what they were doing and knew how to put a plan into place, so that overall we could improve it as a community.
And their interactive piece, they had kind of a Monopoly type game board that they had votes that they would ask a question, and then if they got it right, they got to lock through to the next square, which was pretty fun. We had other exhibits. The top left there was talking about living on a floodplain, where students put houses on where they would like to build them, and then they represented a flood to show the dangers of that. The group to the right was talking about recreation and how you can be environmentally friendly when you're participating in recreation activities. The booth that won the voters' choice was the top right, which was Slow the Flow. They had little pieces of paper, and it was everyday items asking how much water you think you use in those items, and they put them in a box of the according size, and then they educated them about, hey, you know, your shower uses a lot of water. You should really reduce, either have a a better flow head or use a shorter shower. Then we had down on the bottom left was kind of an interesting way they would fish, and they would grab a fish, and on the back of it was different activities that happen in Davenport along the water to try to get people more engaged, because the more you participate in environmental activities, the more likely you are to be an environmental steward. And so they thought they could make a change that way. The center bottom, we borrowed Gil, the mascot. He became Frankie the fish to talk about different activities that impact our waterway in a fun, interactive way for smaller children. And then the group to the right was about wetlands. They made a model, an interactive model, to show the importance of wetlands and water retention. We gave them the same survey. Only 9 students said they knew what a watershed was before the class. They all knew what it was after the class. 86% plan to apply it to their daily lives. Only 18% wanted to go into a career for this, but that's still, again, better than 0. 96% again said that this really gave them a good experience explaining the workings of executing solutions. I had one group that reached out to 10 different community partners and were turned down by all 10 of them. And that was not because they didn't want to be part of the event, but because they had different events going on or the students didn't communicate clearly. It was a lot of life lessons in that aspect as well. 77% feel like they educated a large number of people. I think that those that disagree, we had much higher hopes for how many people would come to the expo, and we had a large space. We marketed it to all the elementary schools, high schools, and junior highs in Davenport. In addition, we put it on the calendar page of 10 different organizations. We were featured on the news. They did a live weather report from our classroom, which was quite the experience. And then we had a group that was on an afternoon talk show promoting it as well. And we had news coverage from all 3 of our news channels. So we thought that we would have a large number of people, and those that disagree, we were just disappointed that we didn't see that many. Lacey and Julia have a ton of stickers left over as well from their event. And 91% of the students feel like our community has a lot of work to do still. So with that was a whirlwind of 18 weeks. What questions do you have about project-based instruction or the Watershed projects or anything? Yeah?
I first want to congratulate you and the students that are president and being the first pilot for this program in the state of Iowa, so round of applause. Secondly, we're planning on piloting this in Storm Lake, and so I'm wondering if all of you, so I'll start with the students and then we can discuss. Okay. So students, do you have suggestions, having gone through this process, on suggestions you might provide, that we provide to the students at the high school in Storm Lake? Some things to think about, some things to consider. You can take a couple of minutes to think about it, yeah.
I would say definitely you need to narrow down your topic. When we first started, there was a graph that you can see on the blue poster board down in the bottom right. We saw that graph, and that was pretty much what we got to choose from. So there was maybe 10 options, and so you saw like infrastructure maintenance, but that's a very broad topic to try to cover, and it can be, looking at it, it was really stressful to think of how many different things that there would need to be maintained. So I would say narrowing down your topic and focusing on one aspect of the entire thing makes it a lot easier and a lot more manageable to get your point across.
Others have suggestions on what you would tell students in Storm Lake?
Maybe I feel like the field trips we went on in class like really helped, because we got to see like when usually when you drive by like lakes and stuff, you don't really think about all the contaminations in it and everything. But when we were on those field trips, you can like see all the garbage and everything that was affecting the creeks and streams going in the watershed. So.
I think just to tell them to be open-minded about it and really just to take a second and look around and be aware of your surroundings, and so they could really understand that it affects them and everyone.
I would say to just pick a topic that they're really going to get into, because it makes it that much easier. I know picking permeable pavement, at first I was kind of iffy about it, but then like researching it, I really got into it, and it makes you that more passionate about it, and it makes the education come across that much better. So definitely picking a topic that they're going to get into.
And I think for me, every school is going to do this differently. I had to amp it up on a 9-week scale, which was insane, but amazing. They produced some awesome things. One thing that I did not do a good enough of a job was preparing for how to deal with all sorts of different people in the community, and just feedback that they can get positive, and how to build from that. Yeah.
And what is your overall impression, and I'm sorry, I'm asking too many questions, but what is your overall impression of this form of learning, project-based learning, students went to today?
This is my favorite type of learning. In most science classes, I think you learn a lot about what is damaging the community and what is damaging the environment, but then you don't get the opportunity to do anything about it. So you're just told that a lot of things are bad, but you can't really do anything about it. So you're just left open-handed, like, I wish I could do more. Whereas this class, we were told that there's a real problem with our watershed and we're gonna do something about it. So you get to choose a topic and this is what you're gonna fix. And I liked that we all had something that we could work on, and knowing that we were actually making a difference for people was a really empowering and really quick way to engage people in what they're learning.
Anybody else?
No, I was going to say basically what she said.
I think also we are on spring break right now, and the fact that these 4 have decided to come and give their time. Yeah. Oh, she was behind you first. Yeah.
I just want to say, I work at FP&M facilities at Iowa State, and we do a lot of reviews for class projects and stuff on the college level. And I just want to commend you all for, I mean, you're very well spoken, you're very well informed, very great information. It sounds like the process was fabulous, and you've taken a lot out of it. And I think listening to you, I mean, I would never know that you were high school students talking to me today. So very well done, and I'm very impressed with quality of work and kind of your feedback that you've given today, especially the passage with this whole
Thank you.
Next pilot. So very well done.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, first off, I was really impressed how fast you guys got to the treatment.
Scott came out and took a look for us. He was our resident expert.
But I guess my question is once the rain garden's redone, do you have any maintenance plan?
That's going to be part of our project 4th term as well. I was hoping that I could build it into this class, but not knowing if this class is always going to run with as many sections. We now have a strong environmental science club. We're going to have them work with it on the fall, and then my class will tackle it in the spring. So yes, we will absolutely work on a maintenance plan for the rain gardens. Yep. Other questions?
Would you engage your drinking water or wastewater facilities in any of your discussions or presentations?
First term, we had wastewater treatment come and speak to the class and talk about their process. We tried the second time, but they were busy each time, and I couldn't squeeze that field trip in. But they have absolutely been integral in this as well. I still have to maintain the curriculum that I have, and wastewater treatment is part of that. And I am by no means an expert on everything with the watershed, so my philosophy of education is I like to bring those experts into my class if I can't take them out of my class. And so yes, they were part of it. The drinking water, Iowa American Water, we had tried to contact them, and it didn't work out, them coming in. But those are things that we're working on in the future as well. And you had a question, yeah?
So Laura, thank you so much for sharing this with us today. It sounds like you obviously have plans for the future of what you want to do and how you want to improve and evolve with this. I guess I'd like to hear from the students. I mean, so y'all this is it's fantastic that you were here and sharing your stories. But so this, I mean, it had an impact on you. Do you have a plan for what you're going to take away from this experience? Do you have other activities or goals or other things that you want to do just from what you took away from this experience? More education?
Well, hopefully my signs get implemented at our watershed, not our watershed, our rain garden. And then I was thinking about doing it at an elementary school with some other kids. But I personally really loved this class. At first I was kind of iffy about it. It seemed like a lot of work. But after I did it, I really learned to love this. And I'm looking into this being a career for me. So I think I've grown a lot, and hopefully other kids have too.
Yeah, I'm part of the environmental science club, and I think since we've already took out all the dead trees and invasive plants, I am going to do my best to maintain the rain garden, because right now we are for environmental club, we are planting other plants, so I'm hoping we'd also get to plant plants in the rain garden. And yeah, I actually showed interest in this. At first, I didn't really know what a rain garden was until I started learning about my topic, and I actually really liked this class because I got into my topic, and yeah. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When are you going to plan on implementing the rain garden in the watershed?
Soon, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So fourth term.
How many places?
Well, we have 2 rain gardens already that have been implemented. They just weren't managed very well. And so fourth term, we are replanting it, and then in the spring or in the fall of next year, we have to weed, and then hopefully we will get a burn in the spring of the next year. So we're working on a maintenance plan. The other group that's trying to install the rain gardens at Nahant Marsh, they thought that they would have everything fundraised and they would be breaking ground in March. Reality has hit. That's not going to happen. This group, they are very dedicated, and they are juniors. All of these young ladies here are juniors. The 2 that are doing the rain gardens say they will have it installed before they graduate high school. And I do not doubt them.
Are there still shirts for sale?
There are still shirts for sale and bracelets. But Robbin Dunn, again, from Public Works, I could not have done any of this without the support from our Public Works. My email is there, her email is there. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. I think our time is about up. So thank you very much for being here.